Main event of the evening.
These days are
Hello and welcome to These Days Are Ours, a Happy Days podcast. I'm Peter.
And I'm Joe.
And today we are discussing Season 10, Episode 18, Wild Blue Yonder.
Okay, Peter, tell us what happens in Wild Blue Yonder.
Casey and Jenny join Flip and Tommy at Arnold's and invite them to a party this weekend at Flip's place.
I just wanted to invite you and Tommy to a party this Saturday.
all right. Great. Where is it?
Your place.
Flip doesn't want to throw a party where Roger is because his idea of a fun party involves word games, but Jenny reminds him his brother is going to a teachers' convention in Minneapolis. Speaking of plans being made on other people's behalf, Roger submitted Fonzie's application for the teachers' convention too.
Fonz, this is going to be a golden opportunity. I mean, some of the best educators in the world are going to be there.
Fonzie tries to get Tommy and then Ashley to offer excuses for why he can't go, but Tommy finished all the work at the garage, and Ashley has to finish a big tax audit.
The clown can wait.
The clown is you.
Fonzie has nothing stopping him from going, but on the bright side, Ashley is impressed that he's going to the convention. At the Cunningham house, Howard tells Casey and Jenny that Flip is staying with them while Roger is out of town. Casey and Jenny go to cancel their party plans, which involved a trampoline, and then Potsy and Roger enter, having missed the plane because Fonzie never showed up.
I never saw a jet take off.
Just stop whining.
Fonzie enters, not particularly upset at missing the convention. Potsy has a solution though. Omar's Airways, whose pilot owes Potsy a favor. See, most of Omar's flights are crop dusting or scattering ashes for funerals, and recently, Omar accidentally spread Potsy's late Uncle Herman over 7 acres of squash.
7 acres? He was a tall man.
On the flight, Fonzie is nervous, but Roger insists you can't be a pilot without vigorous training, and asks the rather jittery Omar his flight plan. The flight plan is to fly until they get there.
Well, I plan to fly around until we get there, and then I plan to land.
And also, Omar has some ashes to scatter on the way. The propeller begins to malfunction, so Omar tells them to get their parachutes and jump like him. However, there are no parachutes, just a note from Omar's parents.
Omar, I hope you don't mind, but we borrowed your parachutes for the weekend. Love, Mom and Dad.
With no pilot, Fonzie starts to panic, and Roger slaps him. Before Fonzie can kill him, the plane starts to plummet. Fonzie takes the controls, and the plane manages to stay up.
This is fun or what? Huh? Omar's a jerk. Yes.
Roger finds the radio, and they send out a message to the outside world. Then the plane begins to lose altitude, and even Fonzie hitting it can't keep it aloft. Back at the Cunningham house, Howard, Marion, Casey, Jenny, and Potsy are playing password.
Superior? Greater?
Roughly a form of the word.
Ashley runs in, worried because Fonzie hasn't called her from Minneapolis. Howard says he's probably just busy. Conventions are like that. The plane has crashed on the side of a mountain.
The damn plane has crashed into the mountain!
And miraculously, both Fonzie and Roger have survived. Less miraculously, they're nowhere near civilization, and Roger insists on staying with the wreckage so a rescue crew can find them. His sprained ankle doesn't help.
Now, do you see any flares around?
Yeah. A very big blonde one. To my right.
Back at the Cunningham house, Howard has just called the airport and is waiting to hear back from them. Potsy suggests watching the late movie to pass the time and calm everyone's nerves. God is my co-pilot. This does not do anything to help the panicking family and friends. The phone rings. The plane had engine trouble, and they've sent out a search party. Potsy, who has been making unhelpful remarks, is sent outside by Howard.
All right. I can't promise I'll find him.
Fonzie and Roger continue to wait for help. Roger admits this is all his fault, but he won't feel guilty when Fonzie keeps shooting down every suggestion he makes. Fonzie admits that the reason why he didn't want to go to the convention is because he's not as educated as the other teachers. The last time he went into a teacher's lounge, they were discussing the Dred Scott decision, and Fonzie thought he was a prize fighter.
Hey, I'm sorry, Fonz. I didn't know you felt that way.
I'm not like you people.
Roger says there's more to being a teacher than credentials, and Fonzie gets students invested like no one else. And then someone finds them.
What are you guys doing here?
It turns out they landed on the bunny hill of a ski resort. The next night at Arnold's, Fonzie and Ashley are on a double date with Roger and another girl. Roger claims to have sprained his ankle foraging for food, and keeping himself and Fonzie awake at night with inspirational stories. His date promises to make him feel better, and they leave together. Fonzie claims to Ashley that actually, he was the one who foraged for food, and told inspirational stories, and fought off wolves with his keys.
Poor brave boy.
Yeah.
Whatever can I do for you?
Hold that thought.
Thank you, Peter. That was Wild Blue Yonder. It first aired back on February 15th, 1983. Happy Days was followed by a new Laverne and Shirley, in which Laverne and her friends hold a seance to contact the ghost of an Olympian who is haunting Laverne's apartment.
Tell us what you desire.
How about a little kiss?
CBS had a new episode of The Wonderful World of Disney called Mickey and Donald Kidding Around, featuring some vintage cartoons of the famous Mouse and Duck. Highlights include Donald teaching his nephews how to play hockey in the 1939 cartoon The Hockey Champ. And NBC had a new episode of The A-Team. This week, Hannibal and his men are hired by a police officer who has discovered that his colleagues on the force are hired killers. So, Peter, of those three choices, what are you watching?
I'm in the mood for some old cartoons that don't ask me to think too much.
I could not turn down some vintage Mickey and Donald cartoons as well, so CBS gets the win for the night. Wild Blue Yonder was directed by Jerry Paris, and it was written by Richard Gurman and Larry Strother from a story by Michael O. Mahoney and Francis X. Fagan Jr.
Joey Jojo Jr. Shabadoo?
Richard and Larry we have already discussed on this podcast. Richard's most recent episode was Going Steady. Larry's was I Drink, Therefore I Am. But this was the one and only contribution to Happy Days by Michael O. Mahoney and Francis X. Fagan Jr. Michael was a brand new writer who went on to work almost exclusively for animated shows in the 80s and 90s. His credits include Inspector Gadget, Kissy Fur, DuckTales, Beverly Hills Teens, Jace and the Wheeled Warriors, Camp Candy, Street Sharks, and Captain Planet and the Planeteers. But he also wrote a few episodes of the live-action Highlander TV series in the 90s, plus a 2009 crime comedy called Hard Times.
May I just say that it makes me so happy that there is a direct connection between Happy Days and Street Sharks because of that old hoax where someone took advantage of the fact that Street Sharks is fairly obscure by old cartoon standards. So they made up a fake episode where Henry Winkler guest starred because Henry Winkler famously jumped the shark. So it kind of makes me happy that there is a direct connection between Happy Days and Street Sharks.
Meanwhile, Francis Xavier Fagan Jr. was a publicist, entertainment reporter, and occasional screenwriter from Cleveland who is credited with creating the first ever computer program for script writers. His other TV credits include Too Close for Comfort and Barney Miller. In addition to working as a unit publicist for 20th Century Fox and writing for the Los Angeles Herald Examiner, he also publicized such LA stage productions as Hair, Godspell, and Jesus Christ Superstar.
Jesus Christ Superstar. It's the story of Jesus Christ and how he became a superstar.
He died of a heart attack in 1996 at the age of 53. As for guest stars this week, let's start with Martin Ferrero as Omar.
Hey, would you mind if I was to conduct a little funeral service up here?
Martin is a New York actor best known as Donald Gennaro, the lawyer who gets eaten by a T-Rex in Jurassic Park, and as Izzy Moreno, the sleazy police informant on Miami Vice.
This is the biggest takedown in the annals of crime.
Martin maintained a very steady presence in TV and film from the late 1970s to the 2000s. Gary Marshall also used him on Mork and Mindy and Joni Loves Chachi. Before Happy Days, you could have seen him on The Ropers, Angie, The White Shadow, MASH, Newhart, and Different Strokes, plus movies like The Incredible Shrinking Woman with Lily Tomlin and George Romero's Night Riders. After Happy Days, Martin turned up on Moonlighting, Alice, Cheers, LA Law, The Practice, and The X-Files, and in such movies as Get Shorty, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, Gods and Monsters, in which he plays George Cukor, the Tailor of Panama, and Ron Howard's Gung Ho. Peter, what did you think of Martin Ferrero as Omar?
His performance was a lot of fun. I really liked the jittery energy he brought to the role, and the fact that he is, in this case, extremely out of his depth. He should not be taking these two people to another place. He should stick to crop dusting and scattering ashes. And even then, he doesn't seem to be very good at it if he accidentally scattered ashes over squash. That can't be good for the squash. There was something very Hunter S. Thompson about his delivery, I think.
For one thing, I tend to favor drugs that increase intensity of any experience. Mm-hmm.
Once the propeller started to malfunction, he just immediately jumps to, okay, time to get out of here. And he leaves before making sure that Fonzie and Roger are going to be okay.
Which they are very much not. Omar had me thinking about the trope of the wacky, scatterbrained aviator character that you sometimes see in movies, TV shows, and especially cartoons.
Oh yeah, like Launchpad McQuack.
And they always have to have the goggles on top of their head, which Omar definitely has here. There were also wacky aviators on shows like Rocky and Bullwinkle and Gilligan's Island. I don't know what happened to that trope, but Omar embodies it very well here. We also have William Waff as the skier who finds the plane at the end of the episode.
You think you got problems? There's a 2-hour wait on the ski lift.
William was at the beginning of an acting career that lasted into the 2010s. He'd also turned up on Joni Loves Chachi. After Happy Days, his credits include Dynasty, Coach, Major Dad, Doogie Howser, Monk, and House. He's also done a fair amount of voice work. His video games include several titles in the Sims franchise, plus ADR on films like Dickie Roberts' former child star, The Santa Claus 2, Scent of a Woman, and Ron Howard's movie Far and Away. So, Peter, did you have any thoughts on William Waff as our skier?
Omar is a cartoon character who somehow came to life, and this guy is just a normal guy who is just annoyed that there is a crashed airplane on the bunny hill. He just wants to go skiing.
I like the way he underplays it. Like this is just a minor annoyance in his day and not an amazing event that there's an airplane in the middle of this mountain. And at the end of the episode, we have Catherine Gilmore as Teresa, Roger's date.
I never knew anyone who actually foraged for food.
Catherine is a model and actress who is probably best known for appearing on the cover of Teen magazine in the 1980s, but she did some acting as well and even has some other Happy Days connections. She was in Ron Howard's movie Night Shift in 1982, and she was on Laverne and Shirley less than a month after doing this episode. Her other credits include Eight is Enough, McLean's Law, and Amazing Stories, in which she plays a magazine pinup who comes to life. Peter, what did you think of Catherine Gilmore as Teresa?
Roger and Fonzie are the ones who mostly get to be funny at the end, and she's mostly just there to be a part of the joke that Roger is shamelessly lying about his experiences so he can impress this girl, but the joke wouldn't work without her, so I'm glad she's here. I kind of wish she got to do more, but you know.
Catherine Gilmore does fine with this rather thankless part. She reminded me of the generic girlfriend of the week characters that Fonzie and sometimes even Richie used to have, who would be there for a scene just to set up some dialogue. As for songs this week, at Arnold's during the first scene, we hear Do You Love Me by the Contours and an instrumental version of Tell Him, which became a top 10 hit for the Exciters in January 1963. And Peter, I have complained about Happy Days' version of Do You Love Me by the Contours before, but oh my God, it was getting on my nerves this week.
It's not so much Uncanny Valley as it is just blatantly wrong.
During the tag, we hear One Fine Day by the Chiffons. As for cultural and historical references, this episode takes its title from the official song of the United States Air Force. The lyrics, written in 1939 by Captain Robert MacArthur Crawford, start with the lines, Off we go into the wild blue yonder, climbing high into the sun.
Off we go into the wild blue yonder, climbing high into the sun.
Roger says that driving from Milwaukee to Minneapolis will take too long, but it's only about 5 hours. Is 5 hours a long drive to you?
It's a long drive, but not so long that I would take a plane instead.
Obviously, there are no mountains between Wisconsin and Minnesota. The Happy Days writers are once again forgetting that not everyone lives out west. Peter, this episode had me looking at a topographic map of the United States and thinking, are there a bunch of mountains out here that I'm not aware of? There are not. The stock footage that we see of mountains is obviously not filmed in the Midwest at all.
Obviously not.
Fonzie says he doesn't want to look a gift horse in the mouth.
I don't want to look a gift horse in the mouth here.
This expression has been traced back as far as the year 400, when St. Jerome wrote his commentary on St. Paul's letter to the Ephesians. Horses' teeth are inspected to determine the animal's age and value. According to people who know their planes, and I do not, Omar's plane is a high-wing Cessna when it's in the air, but a low-wing Piper when it's on the ground. So this is another example of this episode not being very accurate to geography or aviation. Did you notice a difference between the plane when it was in the air and on the ground? They look the same to me.
Yeah, they pretty much look the same to me, but all planes look the same to me.
Omar begins the impromptu funeral service with ashes to ashes, dust to dust.
Ashes to ashes, dust to dust.
There are similar sentiments to this in the Bible, but the quote actually comes from the Book of Common Prayer, published by the Anglican Church in the 1500s.
Bleeding C of E.
This is also where we get such phrases as speak now or forever hold your peace and till death do us part. Omar then pretends that the urn is a football and yells something unintelligible about Bart Starr, who was the quarterback for the Green Bay Packers in the early 1960s.
Bart Starr's back to back. Gets a block from Gussie Coomer.
When he bails out, he again pretends that he's in a football game and yells something unintelligible about Paul Hornung, who was a running back for the Packers during that same time.
Here's the airlock to Horning around the outside. It's an option. Punch once, punch twice, keep sitting flat.
We've talked about Bart Starr and Paul Hornung on this podcast before because they were playing for the Green Bay Packers in the early 1960s. I couldn't understand what he was saying. Do you even remember the moments that I'm talking about where he pretends that he's in a football game and that the urn is a football?
Yes, I do. Interesting choice. Also, he doesn't really scatter the ashes so much as he just chucks them out of the plane, which doesn't seem like a good way to do your job. I don't think that's what the Mourning family had in mind when they asked you to scatter that guy's ashes.
Something tells me that Omar is not very good at his job. When Roger gets on the radio, he yells, "Mayday!"
Mayday! Mayday! SOS!
This is a distress signal conceived by Frederick Stanley Mockford at Croydon Airport in England. It has nothing to do with the holiday May Day. Instead, that term was chosen because it sounds like midi, which means help me in French. Fonzie pretends that he is Sky King.
We're gonna pretend this is the Songbird. I'm Sky King and you're my niece Penny.
This was a syndicated action show that ran from 1951 to 1959. Kirby Grant played Skylar Sky King, an Arizona rancher with his own airplane, a Cessna called the Songbird. Accompanying Sky King on his many adventures were his niece Penny King and her brother Clipper King.
Out of the clear blue of the western sky comes Sky King, brought to you by Nabisco, National Biscuit Company.
Sky King actually started as a radio show in the 1940s and was created by the same team who created Captain Midnight, which we talked about just last week. Peter, were you at all familiar with Sky King?
I am not, no.
I was a little bit because the reruns were still on TV somewhat when I was a kid. And this is another example of Fonzie being into shows that are really meant for children. They never name the word game that the Cunninghams are playing in this episode, maybe to avoid copyright infringement.
Wow, the score is 21-19. It's an exciting game, and either team could win the match.
The rules seem to be close to those of the TV game show Password, and there was a Password home game in 1962.
You don't even get a lousy copy of our home game.
According to survival experts, Roger is correct that the survivors of a plane crash should stay with the wreckage, but I think it would be a good idea to at least make a cursory examination of the surroundings, which they obviously failed to do. I think if they'd gotten out of the plane just a little bit and looked around, they would notice that they were at a ski resort. Do you think so, Peter?
I don't know enough about ski resorts to say whether or not it's accurate.
Potsy suggests watching the movie God is My Co-Pilot.
There's a great film on. God is My Co-Pilot.
This is a World War II drama from 1945 starring Dennis Morgan, Dane Clark, Raymond Massey, and Alan Hale. It's based on the memoirs of a real pilot named Colonel Robert Lee Scott, who flew with the Flying Tigers.
This is the record of my experiences as a fighter pilot with General Chenault and the flyers under his command. The story is true, the events actual, and Warner Brothers have filmed it as I lived it in the skies over Asia.
Have you ever seen that one? I had never even heard of it.
No, I have not.
It looks intriguing. Fonzie says, "Where is that dog with the booze under his chin?"
Where is that dog with the booze under his chin?
Sadly, it is only a myth that St. Bernards patrol the Alps with little barrels of brandy strapped to their collars. This has never been real. It was a scene created by an English painter in 1820. Are you familiar with that scene of the St. Bernard with the keg of brandy strapped to his collar coming to the rescue of somebody in the mountains?
I am, but I have no idea how. I didn't see it in any one specific movie or TV show. I just somehow absorbed it pop culturally.
I think it's in cartoons. Yeah, I can't cite a specific example, but I know that trope.
A lot of history teachers were sitting around, talking about the Dred Scott decision.
The Dred Scott decision obviously is an infamous 1857 ruling by the U.S. Supreme Court. The court found that living in a free state did not entitle an enslaved person to his freedom, and that no person of African descent could be considered a U.S. citizen. This very unpopular ruling hastened the beginning of the Civil War, and Fonzie should probably have known that by his age, do you think?
Yeah, he totally should have known that. The Dred Scott decision was kind of a big, horrifying deal.
At the end of the episode, we learn that Fonzie and Roger have crashed on the Bunny Hill at a ski resort.
They won't like how you tore up the Bunny Hill.
No one knows exactly where this term originated, but it means a gentle slope used by novice skiers and children. That term may refer to the fact that the hill looks like a rabbit's burrow, or that small kids with skis on their feet look like bunny rabbits.
Do the bunny hop, 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 hop.
Peter, I have never gone skiing at all, and I would be terrified to do so. Have you ever even strapped skis to your feet?
Absolutely not. I have no athletic ability whatsoever. If I tried to ski, I'd probably just break all my bones, and I don't want to do that.
Neither do I, so I'm never getting near the bunny hill. And Fonzie says he told the story of the little engine that could.
I was the one who told the inspirational stories, like the little engine that could. I think I can.
This famous story was actually a folktale before it was published as a book in 1930, where it was credited to Waddy Piper, a pen name for Arnold Monk of the publishing company Platt and Monk. The story is well known for its catchphrase, I think I can, I think I can. Peter, did you grow up hearing that story, The Little Engine That Could?
I did. I had a VHS tape of an animated adaptation of The Little Engine That Could. It had songs and stuff, and all the toys were alive. I liked it as a kid.
Turn back. You're too little. You can't do it. I think I can.
I have not seen that version of it. Other observations this week. This episode confirms that Jenny Piccolo did not graduate with Joni and Chachi last season and is still attending Jefferson High. That's kind of sad when you think about it.
Yeah, it's real sad.
Flip is right. He says,
Yeah, well, at least I'll still be in my teens when I graduate from high school.
Jenny would be running out of teens here.
Yeah, she's got to be pushing 20 by now.
I wonder what in this episode they were using for fake snow, because Ted McGinley gets some in his mouth. What do you think they make the fake snow out of? I've heard, like in the past, it was soap flakes.
Man. I hope it wasn't that, for Ted's sake.
Do you think that Potsy really went looking for Fonzie and Roger?
I think Potsy would do that. I think he has the right blend of earnestness and complete thoughtlessness. It would not occur to him that he could not do what an entire search party is already trying to do, and he would care enough to try and do it. It would be admirable if it wasn't so sad.
I think that they have inadvertently set up another potential tragedy here. And it would be kind of darkly funny if Potsy never appeared on the series again after this episode. Peter, there are two establishing shots of Arnold's in this episode. One with the Christmas lights still up and one without. So is it Christmas time or is it not?
Maybe it's like post-Christmas. Christmas is over, but nobody has taken down their lights yet.
That's a possibility, because the one with the Christmas lights is at the beginning of the episode. The one without the Christmas lights is at the end. So, Peter, were there any outstanding Happy Days fashions in this episode?
Sadly, no.
Other than Omar's aviator outfit, that was kind of jaunty. So, Peter, I will ask that age-old timeless question, was this episode any good?
This might be my favorite episode of season 10 so far. It's consistently very funny. I chuckled from beginning to end. And I was a little bit touched by Roger reassuring Fonzie that he is a good teacher, even if he doesn't have the traditional education that most teachers have.
I think it was interesting at this juncture in the series to get a Fonzie and Roger bonding episode, one that would put them in an isolated situation and see how they get along. Another thing that I liked about this one was that it utilizes pretty much the entire cast of Happy Days at this point. I think almost all the characters are in this one. Is Arnold in it at all?
He is not, sadly, and neither is Clarence.
Or Heather.
Yeah, she's not in this episode.
But just about everyone else is there. So this is a nice group effort. Obviously, Fonzie and Roger crashing a plane into a mountain is a very, very different kind of story than what they've ever done. And that's what you get to do if you're on the air for 11 seasons. You get to do much wilder stories. And this one even has wild right in the title. So yeah, it's more action-packed and exciting than the average episode of Happy Days. So if people are checking out the later seasons of Happy Days, don't skip over Wild Blue Yonder.
The jokes about Potsy's Uncle Herman and at the end when Roger and Fonzie are both bold-facedly lying about what they did when they were stranded are two of my favorite jokes in recent Happy Days memory.
Maybe the writers were putting in a little extra effort this week. That's always good to know that they haven't given up. They're still trying to make this show good and funny. So good on them. So Peter, how can people keep up with us and find out about all the wonderful things that we are doing?
Listeners can follow us on Twitter at Fonzie Podcast. They can follow me on Twitter at Peter Wolfranc. That's PeterVulfranc. That's also my handle on Co-Host and Blue Sky in case Twitter starts to implode.
Follow us on those platforms while you can, folks, because it looks like the party may be coming to an end there. For the time being, you can follow me on Twitter at Joe_A_Blevins. They can find this podcast online at thesedaysAreours.libsyn.com. That's not going anywhere. And they can email us with questions, comments, and concerns at thesedaysAreourspodcast@gmail.com. So, Peter, what do we have on the docket for next week?
Next week, Fonzie is recruited to be best man at a wedding for a friend, and then the bride takes an interest in him. May the Best Man Win.
That sounds like an exciting episode, and there is a very exciting guest star in that one. So, see you later, alligator.
In a while, crocodile.
Up in the air, Junior bird.
box tops, 4 labels, 3 coupons, 2 bottle caps, and 1